This is Sara with Posh Pooch Designs, and today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make this fun little pennant dog bandana. Now this will work for any size dog because you make it bigger by adding more rows around. The pattern is a free pattern on my blog. It's just called the Pennant Dog Bandana. And I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath the video. Now be sure and click that See More underneath the video so that it'll show the blog link. Now it's a good idea to grab your tape measure and measure your dog's neck because you want the bandana to be about half the size of your dog's neck, and then when we put the ties on, that'll go around and hold it in place. For today's demonstration, I'm going to be using this light blue sport weight and this bright yellow sport weight. And this pattern is designed using a sport weight, which is a number 3 yarn. Now, you can use a smaller yarn or you can use a bigger yarn. Just keep in mind you'll need to go up or down a hook size if you choose to vary from this pattern. And also, I will show you how to make this fun little pom-pom. And this is a great little bandana for your dog or your cat, any size, to show your team or school spirit. It's also a great fundraiser for dog rescues and school fundraisers. Of course, like I said, to make in your school colors. And what I do, I'll show you at the end how I do it, but I go ahead and I tie the ties and I set it to my dog's size so I can just slip it on and off their neck. So gather you a couple of colors or even make it all in one color. You can even do this in a variegated or any color that you want. I'm going to be changing colors so I can show you how to do that. And I'm going to be using, like I said, this light blue and yellow. So go grab your supplies, grab your G-hook, a needle, and a pair of scissors, and we'll get started. The pattern on my blog is written with the 3 sizes included: extra small, small, and medium. The extra small fits about a 2 to 5 pound dog, and the small fits about a 6 to 8 pound dog, and the medium fits about a 9 to 15 pound dog. Those are just approximates, and remember, to make it bigger, you just continue around as you go until you have it the size that you want. For today's demonstration, we're going to be making one the same size as this one. I'm going to be using this light blue for the center where I have the orange, and then I'll use the gold where I have the blue, and then I'll come back to the light blue. So let me move that aside. And let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a slip knot. Put our hook through that loop and chain 4. We're going to take the tail of that yarn, put it on our hook, and pull it through that loop that's on our crochet hook. And then we'll just make a little knot to snug that down and make sure you have enough room to get that hook through that loop. All right, so let's pull a loop through. Let's make a little chain 1 to get us on the top of our loop. And now we're going to chain 2 more so that we'll have a total of chain 3. So our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. We're going to make 2 more double crochets in this chain 4 loop that we made. To make a double crochet, you're going to yarn over your hook. You're going to go in that chain 4 loop and pull up a loop onto your hook. You'll have those 4 loops. Yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over and go through the second 2, and that's a double crochet. Let's make another one. And then we'll chain 2. So now we have our chain 3, which counts as our first double crochet, and 2 double crochets, chain 2. And now we're going to make 2 more sets of 3 double crochets. So there's 3 double crochets, chain 2. And now we'll make our last set of 3 double crochets. Now you may have to bunch them in there, just make sure they get in there. Whoops. There we go. My yarn just doesn't want to come out today. Alright, 1 more double crochet, chain 2, and so you can see we have 3 sets of 3 double crochets, chain 2. And now we're going to join to the top of this chain 3 with a slip stitch. And then we're going to slip stitch in the next 2 double crochets. And a slip stitch is, just in case you're not sure, you go in the stitch and you pull a loop through. Then you pull that loop that's on your hook on through the loop that's already on your hook. That's a slip stitch. Now we're going to go in that chain 2 space and pull up a slip stitch and then chain 3. And by slip stitching across these double crochets, it gets us right back in this corner without having to turn our work. And I like to do it that way because I think it lays nice and flat. And so what you can see is we have 3 sets of 3 double crochets and 3 chain 2 spaces. So this is how it should look after that first row. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make corners. So we're going to be stitching 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets in each of the corners. Now the chain 3 here counts as our first double crochet. So we're going to stitch 2 more double crochets in this chain 2 space. And a chain 2 space is just the hole or space that's left when you make a chain 2. Alright, so our chain 3 counted as 1 double crochet, and then we stitch 2 more double crochets. So we're going to chain 2, and we're going to stitch 3 more double crochets in this same chain 2 space. We're making a corner here. So there's that first corner, and we're going to chain 2. Now in these next 2 corners we're going to place 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. So there we have our second corner. 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. So we'll chain 2 and do that again in this last corner. So I stitched those 3 corners, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet in each of the corners. Got my chain 2 there. I'm going to join to the top of this chain 3. There we go. And then we'll slip stitch in those 2 double crochets. And then we'll slip stitch in that next chain 2 space. But don't chain 3 because we're going to be changing colors. And this is how it should look at the end of this row. So now it's time to change colors. Don't cut your yarn off. We're going to leave that hang, and we're going to bring in our new color. So we're going to just put a little loop over our hook and draw that through that loop. Snug that down, and what I do is I hold the extra string and the one that's still attached with my finger, snug this down, and chain 3. Now this chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. So we're in our first corner, so we're going to again stitch 2 more double crochets because this chain 3 counted as our first double crochet, and then we're stitching 2 more double crochets, and this is a corner, so we're going to chain 2 and stitch 3 more double crochets. So here's our first corner. Our chain 3 counted as our first double crochet, then we did 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, chain 2. And now we have this chain 2 space on the side, and we're going to place 3 double crochets in that chain 2 space. 1, 2, 3, and chain 2. And we're going to repeat what we just did on the next 2 sides. So in this corner, we'll place 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, then we'll chain 2 and put 3 double crochets in the chain 2 space on the side. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the same chain 2 space because we are stitching a corner, then we'll chain 2, and we're in that chain 2 space on the second side, so 3 double crochets in that chain 2 space. And chain 2. So there's our second side. Here's our corner, our side, our next corner, and our side. And we're going to repeat that in this corner and this side. And then we'll join back to the top of this chain 3. So this is how our bandana should look after row 3. We've got 3 corners with 3 double crochets with a chain 2 between, chain 2, and then 3 double crochets in those chain 2 spaces on the side. Now for this next row, we're not changing colors, so we're not going to worry about that blue one. We're just going to let that hang, and we're using the yellow. Now make sure you slip stitch in those top of those 2 double crochets and in the chain 2 space. And basically what we're doing on this row is exactly the same as the last row, only we're going to have 2 chain 2 spaces on the sides. So we've chained 3, we're going to add 2 more double crochets, and then we're going to chain 2. Then we're going to stitch 3 more double crochets in that same chain 2 space because this is a corner. And chain 2. So there's our corner. All right, now we have 2 chain 2 spaces on the side of our work. So we're going to place 3 double crochets in that first chain 2 space. All right, there's 3. Then chain 2 and 3 double crochets in the next chain 2 space. And again, chain 2. And so you'll see we have a corner, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 double crochets, and then chain 2. And we'll repeat this on these other 2 sides. We'll make a corner like we've done with 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. There's that corner. Now we chain 2, place 3 double crochets in that next chain 2 space, chain 2, and 3 double crochets in the next chain 2 space. And chain 2. And so we've done our second corner and our second side. And we'll repeat this on this side, and we'll join to the top of our chain 3. Then we'll slip stitch to the corner. But don't chain 3 because we're going to be changing back to our center color. We finished the 4th row. We joined to the top of our chain 3 and slip stitched to the corner. Now we're going to put our hook in that loop, and we're going to take that blue from the back and just draw it up and pull it through that loop and go ahead and chain 3. Okay, and then we'll take our yellow yarn and we'll cut it off because we're done with it for right now. There we go. So now we've switched back to our blue yarn, and we're going to repeat exactly what we did on the last row. The only difference, as you can see, is that we're going to have 3 chain 2 spaces on the side. So again, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. We'll double crochet 2 more times. We'll chain 2. Then we will put 3 double crochets in the same chain 2 space because this is a corner, and then chain 2. So there's the first corner after the color change. So now we have these 3 chain 2 spaces. So what we'll do is we chain 2, we'll put 3 double crochets in each of the chain 2 spaces with a chain 2 between. So there's my 3 double crochets. I'm going to chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and chain 2. And that's the way it will look. And we'll repeat this. We'll make the corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and then we'll chain 2 and put 3 double crochet, chain 2 in each of the 3, and then we'll repeat that all the way around, joining to the top of our chain 3, and then slip stitch to the corner. I've completed all the rows around that I want to make for my bandana. Now if you want to make your bandana bigger, just continue to do as many rounds or rows that you want to until it's the size that you want. Now like I said, it's a good idea to measure your dog's neck and make the top of the bandana from here to here half the size of your dog's neck. We're now going to add the ties. For the extra small size, we're going to be chaining 21. If you made the small size, you'll need to chain 26. And if you made the medium size, you'll need to chain 31. But it's up to you how many chains that you make for the ties. Now remember, you don't want the ties to be too long because you don't want them getting caught in their toenails or their teeth or on other things. So don't make your ties too long, but it's up to you how long you want them. All right, so I'm going to chain 21. I have chained 21 chains for the first tie. I'm going to begin stitching slip stitches starting in the second chain from the hook and work my way back down the chain to the bandana. So I'm going to skip this first chain and I'm going to go in that second chain, pull a loop through, and then pull that loop through the loop on my hook. And that's how we'll do the chain back to the bandana. We'll be working a slip stitch in each chain. And this gives us a nice sturdy chain, but it's not too thick. Although, if you would like a thicker tie, if you have a bigger dog, you may want to do a second row of slip stitches across. It's totally up to you how you want to make yours. And so you can see it makes a nice sturdy chain, nice sturdy tie. We're going to slip stitch back to the bandana. I slip stitched back down the chain to the top of the bandana. I'm going to put my hook in, and what we're going to do is we're going to place a slip stitch in each double crochet and each chain all the way across the top. And this is just going to give it a nice sturdy edge. Snug that down. So I'm going to go in that first double crochet, pull a loop through, and pull that loop through on my hook. Then we'll just go through there, and then we'll go to the next double crochet. So basically we're stitching slip stitches across the top of the bandana to keep it in place, give it a nice sturdy edge, and also keeps it from being too stretchy. After we slip stitched on the chain, we slip stitched across the top of our bandana, and you'll see that gives it a nice sturdy edge. And once we've done that, we go to this chain 2 space on the corner, and we're going to chain the same number of chains that we did for the other tie. And since we did 21, we're going to do 21 again. Again, we're going to be starting in the second chain from the hook. So there's our first chain, and we're going to put our hook through the second chain and stitch a slip stitch. And then we'll slip stitch right back down this chain like we did the other one. And we'll slip stitch back to the bandana, and then we'll tie off. Now, if you want a thicker tie, you can stitch across the top as many times as you want to. I just really liked this size for these 3 sizes, the extra small and the medium. But if you have a bigger dog and you want a more sturdy tie, you certainly can add more rows to it. Alright, so I'm going to continue slip stitching back to the bandana, and then I'll show you how to tie off. And then we need to make a pom-pom. I slip stitch down the side of that chain, and I'm going to turn my work backwards, and I'm just going to put my hook through that first chain 2 space there in that corner and pull that loop through both those loops and cut that yarn. Flick that away and then tie off, and then I can weave that in and the tie will lay nicely. So here's the finished bandana. We need to take a minute and weave in our ends with our needle, and then I'm going to show you how to make those little bitty pom-poms. I'm just going to thread the end of that yarn right onto my needle, and I'm just going to weave it in the back, making sure I stay within the color and weave back and forth. And tie that off. Now I've already tidied up over here where I had the yarn coming through. I just took the yellow ends and just sewed over it just to hold it down so it doesn't get caught in anything. And this is just the basic bandana, and you can make it plain if you want to, but I'm going to show you how to make a little pom-pom and add it on. I'm going to be making my pom-pom using both colors. So I'm just going to take one piece of the blue about 12 inches long, which I'll use to tie my pom-pom. Then I'm going to take both colors, and make sure you got you a good pair of scissors that cut well. And I'm going to wind it, I'm going to hold it with my thumb, and I'm just going to wind it loosely around my fingers, all 4 of them. And I spread them a little, but not a lot, because I'm making a small pom-pom. And I'm just going to wrap that around a few times, maybe 10 or 12 times, not a whole lot. And then I'm going to put my thumb right on those strings because I'm holding both of them. I'm going to go ahead, cut those strings. And then I'm going to get this piece of yarn that I already have cut, and I'm going to set those loops right on there. I'm going to take that string, let's move that over a little, there we go. I'm going to take that string that I already had ready, and I'm going to tie right across the center in a nice tight knot. Hold that with my finger. Tie it again, and then I'm going to make another tie because I don't want this pom-pom to come untied. Now, if you're using yarn, you pull really, really hard, you can bust the yarn. Make sure it's snug, but don't pull too tightly. All right, so the next thing I do is I take those 2 long pieces and I hold it in my hand, and then I sort of push all those loops forward. I kind of hold it like this, being careful not to cut my hand, of course. And I take my scissors and I just cut right across all of those loops. Okay, then I just fluff it out. I give it a good look, see if, like, here's some loops I missed. I'm going to go ahead and get those. And I look at it, and if I think it's too long still, I might fluff it back down again and maybe trim a little. But I really like the size of it, and it's a little bit of a loose pom-pom like that. And then I'm going to move my mess a little out of the way, and then I'm going to take my pom-pom, and with my crochet hook I'm going to go in the double crochet stitch right there and pull that one loop to the back. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And the reason I'm going through that double crochet stitch opposed to the hole is I don't want it to come through the hole, and I want it to hold on there pretty sturdy. Alright, so I'm going to grab that other piece of string and pull that to the back. Okay, so the pom-pom's going to be on the front, and I'm going to turn it over. And here's those 2 pieces of string we pulled through. And I'm just going to tie a quick knot like this 2 times. And then I'll put those 2 strings together. And I do what I call a whip over. I don't really know how to explain it to you other than I just sort of put the 2 together, bring it around, and there's a loop here, and I push those 2 tails through there and just sort of shove that loop down tight and pull on it. Now, if you're worried that that's going to come out, you can put a little dot of fray check or fabric glue on that, right on that end of that knot, and it won't come out. But I have never had any of them come out. My dogs like to play. So, there's the pom-pom. Here's the ties. And it's ready to go on your puppy. The last thing I wanted to show you is how I do my bandanas for my dog. And what I do is I take the ties, I put it around my dog's neck so that it fits, and then I just tie a little knot like this. Just a little, I guess they call that a square knot, like this. Then when it's time for my dog to put it on, I can just slide it right over their neck and not have to mess with tying it every time I want to put it on their neck. So here's the yellow one, and here is the orange and blue one that I made the other day. Same thing, I just make a little knot, and then I can just slide it right on to their neck so they can wear them. So this is my Pennant dog bandana. You can make it in your school colors, your favorite team colors, or in any colors that you want to. Just have fun with it.